I have two living grandmothers, but the one in this story is my maternal grandmother, with whom I spent the most time. My grandmother has a difficult personality to deal with. She is someone who is very negative, who criticizes everything and everyone. Very grumpy. In my view, a way to protect herself emotionally. For people on the outside, it can be challenging to have a decent and peaceful conversation with her. However, the family generally knows how to deal with her. After my grandfather passed away, my grandmother lived alone for several years. However, she decided to buy a big house so she could live with one of her children. In this case, my mother. She didn't want to be alone. She wanted someone to take care of her and help when necessary. For this reason, it was agreed that we would all live together, but each family would have their own privacy. As the first few years pass, only a few small annoyances happen. However, as time goes by, the little things that used to bother her turn into heavier issues. It started by creating wrong ideas in her mind. Later, she even said that we were planning something bad against her. Everything she said were lies. It was all in her head. At one point, things were so out of control that I even thought she might have some type of mental illness that was affecting her. But she had nothing to indicate that. After more than a decade of living together, one day we received a letter at home saying that she was suing us. We were shocked. We would never have imagined that we would be sued by a family member. For some reason, this first process didn't progress. However, a few months passed and we received a lawsuit again, but this time she wanted to kick us out of the house. The person who initially wanted us there to take care of her was kicking us in the butt. This time things progressed and an agreement was found in court, and a deadline was set for us to leave that house. After we made the move, my parents promised themselves that they would never have any contact with her again because of what she did to us. And in fact, we did that for some time. But whenever I thought about her, I couldn't stay upset. It made me sad to know that she no longer had anyone to take care of her. I still wanted to know if she needed any help. And that's what I decided to do. Whenever I went out and passed by her house, I stopped to talk to her, to see how she was doing, and to see if she needed anything. At first it was complicated, because she thought I was doing it to set her up. It wasn't my motivation at all. I've been doing this for some time, without my parents knowing. But one day I decided to talk to them. I wanted that somehow the relationship between them and my grandmother became smoother. Obviously, their first reaction was not one of pleasure. They understood that she needs someone to take care of her, but because of what she did, we shouldn't be the ones to do it. But as the remaining two children not only don't want anything to do with her, but also live far away from her, I didn't want her to be alone. As we are the only family that can take care of her, I wanted to continue to keep in touch with her. My parents think I should stop talking to her. She was the one who made the decision to be alone, so she has to suffer the consequences of her choices. I don't want to create problems, but I also don't want to leave her alone like an abandoned dog. Do you think I'm the jerk for continuing to keep in touch with her after what happened? This post didn't have any comments, so here's the update. 3 days ago, I made the decision to keep visiting my grandmother, despite my parents' wishes. They were adamant that we should cut ties with her after the lawsuit, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she needed someone. So I continued my visits, keeping them a secret from my parents. The first day after my last post, I went to see her as usual. She seemed more agitated than before, ranting about how the neighbours were conspiring against her. It was hard to follow her train of thought, but I did my best to calm her down. I made her some tea and checked if she had enough groceries. She did, but she complained that the food tasted strange and accused the store of tampering with it. I reassured her that wasn't the case, but she didn't seem convinced. On the second day, I found her in the garden, trying to fix a broken bird feeder. She was struggling with it, so I offered to help. As we worked on it together, she started talking about my mother. She said she missed her, but in the next breath she called her ungrateful. It was a confusing mix of affection and resentment. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. When we finished with the bird feeder, she thanked me, which was rare. I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe things could get better between her and my parents. Yesterday, the third day, I arrived to find her front door wide open. That was unusual, and I immediately felt uneasy. I called out for her as I stepped inside, but there was no response. I found her sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. She didn't react to my presence at first. When she finally noticed me, she whispered that she had seen my grandfather in the house. She said he was angry with us for leaving her alone. I tried to explain that it was just her imagination, but she wouldn't have it. She was convinced he was there. I stayed with her for a few hours, trying to distract her with conversation and old photo albums. It seemed to work for a while. But every so often she'd stop and look over her shoulder as if she was listening for something. It was unsettling. As I was about to leave, she grabbed my hand and looked at me with more clarity than I'd seen in a long time. She told me she had something important to tell me, but that I had to promise to keep it a secret. Before she could say more, we heard a knock at the door. It was my parents. They had found out about my visits and came to confront us both. The conversation that followed was tense. My parents were furious that I had gone against their wishes. My grandmother, on the other hand, was surprisingly quiet. She just watched us argue back and forth. I tried to explain why I felt the need to visit her, but my parents wouldn't listen. They said I was betraying them by siding with her after everything she had done. In the heat of the argument, my grandmother stood up and declared that she had changed her will. She said she was leaving everything to me because I was the only one who cared about her. My parents were shocked and I was overwhelmed. I didn't want her money, I just wanted to make sure she wasn't alone. The revelation only made things worse. My parents accused me of manipulating her for my own gain. I tried to deny it, but they didn't believe me. They left in anger, saying they needed time to think about what to do next. Now, I'm left with a grandmother who might be losing her grip on reality and parents who think I've betrayed them. I'm not sure what my grandmother was going to tell me before we were interrupted, and I'm afraid to ask. I'm caught in the middle of a family falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it. The situation feels like it's spiraling out of control, and I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Hey, it sounds like you're in a tough spot with your grandma. Maybe consider getting her some professional help. It seems like she might be dealing with some serious mental health issues, especially after your grandpa's passing. It's not easy, but sometimes love means making the hard choice to intervene for their well-being. Comment 2. I had a similar situation with my uncle. He got super paranoid and started lashing out after my aunt died. It tore our family up until we got him diagnosed with dementia. It's rough, but sometimes the kindest thing is to get them the help they need, even if they resist. Now for the next story. We moved in with her mom into 2 rooms they had available on the main floor back in 2017. The house is 3 stories with an upstairs and basement. Now it's me, my wife, and our now 6-year-old daughter. When we moved in, we agreed to pay them $250 per week to cover food, rent, and basic utilities. Now note, this place also has zero insulation, as it was built about 20 years before the Civil War, so the electric bill can be upwards of $500 sometimes, and they refused to fix that problem. And then told us we are not allowed to have any heating fans or cooling devices in our rooms downstairs, even if the house gets uncomfortably hot or cold. Our daughter will sleep on the couch in the front room if the temperature gets too hot, so she's near the AC. Her grandma didn't like it, and I told her to deal with it because I'm not making her suffer, because her grandma is a Grinch. Progress a few years and Infection 19 hit, and they raised the rent to $350 per week to help offset bills, which I agreed to. Then about a year later in 2021, my mother-in-law quit her job and found a much lower-paying job with fewer hours, and then wanted us to cover the extra cost of the wages she lost. Then, to make matters worse, she began billing us for chores she was doing in her own house. We don't own that house. I used to help her, and after she began racking up the bills despite us doing chores, I gave up on them. Why do the chores to then be billed for it? And for chores, according to her, we should be cleaning the kitchen, bathroom, basement, tidying up storage, family room, laundry room. These rooms are over half the flipping house, and helping to keep the outside cleaned up, and if we don't, we get billed for it. Now I work 50+ hours a week and my wife works 40+, and I'm not going to lie, we live paycheck to paycheck paying for everything. Other things my mother-in-law is trying to bill us for is our daughter. So my daughter's coat started to fall apart, and the day before I was going to take my daughter to pick out a coat, mother-in-law bought her one without consulting with us, and then told me, yeah, that was $75, make sure to transfer the money to cover it. I was livid. A, I never asked her to buy it, and B, my daughter wasn't given the choice if she wanted it or not. She accepted it, so she didn't upset Grandma. But I told her she needs to consult with me or my wife before she buys anything like that, especially if she is planning on billing us for it. I also recently found out she had added herself to my wife's account when it was created 20 years ago when she was still a minor. I found out when I noticed transfers going to her account that I didn't do, nor did she. She added me to her account, so it's a joint account now. Mother-in-law came to me in a screaming rage when she found out I removed her access this morning. Am I the idiot for telling my wife's mum I'm not paying her for chores and for her buying my daughter's clothes and for removing her mum's access to her account? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the jerk about the junk charges, but you've worn out your welcome years ago. It's past time to move out. Comment 2. This is the biggest troll under the smallest bridge. Now, for the update. A lot has happened since I last shared about the living situation with my mother-in-law. The tension in the house reached a boiling point after I removed her access to my wife's bank account. She was furious, but my wife and I stood our ground. We had a long, difficult conversation where we laid out our boundaries clearly. It was tough, but necessary. In the past 2 weeks, things have slowly started to shift. My wife and I took a hard look at our finances and began to make some changes. We started by creating a strict budget for ourselves, cutting down on any unnecessary expenses. We also began looking for better job opportunities that could offer us more financial stability. It's been a grind, but we're determined to improve our situation. The relationship with my mother-in-law has been strained, to say the least. After the confrontation, there was a period of awkward silence. But as time passed, we've all made small efforts to communicate better. My wife has been instrumental in mediating between her mother and me. We've had a few family meetings to discuss how we can all contribute to the household without stepping on each other's toes. One positive development is that my mother-in-law has started to back down on some of her demands. She hasn't brought up any new bills for chores or unexpected purchases. I think she realized that her actions were pushing us away and straining her relationship with her granddaughter. It's not perfect, but it's a start. As for our daughter, she's been a little trooper through all of this. We've made sure to spend quality time with her, ensuring she feels loved and secure despite the tension at home. We took her to pick out a new coat, one that she chose herself, and she was over the moon. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to us. We've also been more proactive in maintaining the house, doing our share of the chores without being asked. This seems to have eased some of the tension with my mother-in-law, and she's even started to occasionally help out with our daughter without expecting payment. It's a delicate balance, but we're managing. The biggest challenge has been the cold. With no insulation and no permission to use heating devices, we've had to get creative. We've invested in some heavy blankets and warm clothing for our daughter. We've also been spending more time in the communal areas of the house where it's warmer. It's not ideal, but we're making it work. Despite all this, we haven't given up on the idea of moving out. We've been saving every penny we can and have started to look at other housing options. It's going to take time, but we're hopeful that we can find a place of our own soon. In the meantime, we're focusing on the positives. Our daughter is doing well in school, and my wife and I are supporting each other through these tough times. We've also started to build a small support network with friends and extended family, which has been a great source of comfort. The situation at home is still challenging, but we're seeing small improvements. My mother-in-law has been less confrontational, and we're finding ways to coexist more peacefully. It's a slow process, but we're committed to making it work for the sake of our family. Looking ahead, we're cautiously optimistic. We're working hard to better our financial situation, and we're hopeful that with time, we'll be able to move into a place of our own. It's not going to be easy, but we're ready to face the challenges head on. With each passing day, we're taking small steps towards a brighter future for ourselves and our daughter. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Hey there, it sounds like you're in a tough spot. Have you considered seeking legal advice regarding the unauthorized access to your bank account? That's a serious issue. Also, it might be time to have a family meeting to discuss a fair financial arrangement or look into tenant rights if that's applicable. Comment 2. Well, isn't that a pickle with a side of crazy sauce? I'd say it's time to channel your inner financial ninja. Start stashing away some cash for an escape the in-law fund, and maybe gift her a calculator so she can tally up how much peace of mind costs. Now, for the next story. I, 22 years old female, have been in a very serious relationship with my boyfriend, 23 years old male, for over a year now. We both live with our parents due to various reasons. Our relationship has moved quite quickly, and we have been talking about getting a place together. For further background, my boyfriend does have Asperger's, considered a form of autism, but you wouldn't know unless he told you. This doesn't bother me, and I love my boyfriend regardless. Recently, I found out that my boyfriend has no access to his own bank account, and his parents have control over it. He has a job driving forklift for a local company, and he makes good money. They give him an allowance of his own money of $600 and put the rest into a savings account that has a lot of money saved. I'm talking $50,000 or more. I did not know about the savings account until after we started dating. I'm dating my boyfriend for him, not his money. For the first few months of our relationship, I have tried to pay for things, but my boyfriend is very traditional and likes to pay, and eventually I just gave up. With the allowance, he is supposed to pay his rent to his parents, a loan he recently took out to get credit, and any other expenses that come up. Normally, I just let it go, but with Christmas coming up and my boyfriend also had to get his wisdom teeth removed as one was cracked, I've been having to foot all of the other expenses that have come up for the past few months, along with my own bills, my rent, pet bills, car payment, etc., and I don't make nearly as much as he does. This has been causing a lot of friction between us. I have had my boyfriend talk to his parents multiple times to get access to his account, but they claim he is too irresponsible. He even said he'd go to the bank to get access back, to which his dad replied, "Good luck," which makes me think either the savings account doesn't exist or he is not the primary account holder. I have told him, and he told his mother, that I will not be at Christmas with them until this matter is resolved, as I'm at my wit's end. And he has said that he will also not be attending if I am not attending. I did not ask him to do this. His mother also told him if he can't afford to live on his salary, then he should get another job, and then said they would discuss it more later. After I left, his mum also told him it isn't OP's concern how I run the family. At the beginning of our relationship, I did not concern myself with his money as I figured it would get better, but as we are trying to start a future together, I feel this is my concern as I plan for us to get a place together in 2024. I don't know what else to do as I have tried the nice route and it didn't work, and my boyfriend doesn't like confrontations. The only thing I can think of, which I think may make me the antagonist, is to tell her to give him access, and she will still be on the account, or we will have his checks sent to my house until we can open a new bank account for him. And if needed, he will stay with me until further notice. So, would I be the antagonist? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the jerk, but honestly, he's in his 20s. If he wants control of his bank account, he can just open one himself and deposit his money there. There's not a damn thing the parents can do about it. This makes it sound like he might have some serious dependency issues. Comment 2. Not the jerk. That doesn't sound legal. The only way he will ever learn responsibility is to have the opportunity to, and 23 is far too old for mummy to decide he's not ready. Let him go to the bank and start proceedings. Now, for the update. Thanks to everyone who read my last post. I wanted to share what's been happening since then. After I put my foot down about Christmas, things got a bit tense. My boyfriend was caught in the middle, and I could tell he was stressed. He didn't want to upset his parents, but he also didn't want to let me down. We had a long talk about it, and he agreed that he needed to take control of his finances, especially if we were going to build a life together. The next day, he went to the bank by himself. It turned out he was the primary account holder after all. His dad had been bluffing. My boyfriend was able to get information about his account and even set up a meeting with a financial advisor at the bank to talk about managing his money. He was pretty proud of himself for taking that step, and I was too. When he told his parents about the bank visit, they were furious. They accused him of being ungrateful and said he was making a huge mistake. But he stood his ground. He explained that he was an adult and needed to learn how to handle his own finances. It was a big moment for him, and I could see that he was starting to feel more confident. We decided to open a new bank account together, one that would be just for our future expenses. We planned to start saving for a down payment on a place. It felt good to be taking positive steps towards our future. Meanwhile, the tension over Christmas was still there. My boyfriend's parents were not happy that I was standing firm on not attending if the money issue wasn't resolved. But then something unexpected happened. My boyfriend's mom called me. She apologized for what she had said and admitted that she was just worried about her son. She explained that they had set up the savings account to help him in the future, but realized they had been too controlling. We had a heart-to-heart, and she agreed to start giving my boyfriend more control over his money. She even offered to help us look for places to live. It was a complete turnaround from where we had been just a few days before. Christmas ended up being more pleasant than I expected. My boyfriend's parents were more welcoming, and it was clear they were trying to make amends. My boyfriend and I talked about our plans for the future, and his parents even gave us some helpful advice. The issue with the wisdom teeth removal came up, and my boyfriend's parents offered to cover the cost as a way to make things right. It was a generous offer, and it took some of the financial pressure off us. As for the loan my boyfriend had taken out, we worked out a budget together to pay it off quickly. His parents were impressed with our plan and agreed to give him a bit more of his paycheck each month to help with the payments. It's been a tough few days, but I feel like we've come out stronger as a couple. My boyfriend is learning to stand up for himself, and I'm learning to be patient and supportive. We're both excited about the future and the possibility of getting our own place. Despite the challenges we've faced, I'm hopeful. We're working together towards our goals, and it feels like we're finally on the same page. It's going to take some time and effort, but I believe we can make it work. The road ahead looks promising, and I'm looking forward to what's to come. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Hey, it sounds like a tough situation. Maybe you could help your boyfriend set up a meeting with a financial advisor. It could be a neutral way to show his parents he's serious about managing his own finances responsibly. Plus, it's a step towards independence for both of you. Comment 2. I had a similar issue with my partner's parents being too involved. It took a lot of communication, but eventually, we found a balance. It's great that your boyfriend stood his ground. Keep supporting each other and things will work out. It did for us. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.